I'm here with Yas, the founder of Incredible, and we are here to talk about debt and mental well-being. Yas, if you'd like to introduce yourself to the audience.
Hi, I'm Yas, founder and CEO of Incredible. We're a repayments platform for consumers and lenders, helping the everyday borrower take back control of what they borrow and how much it costs them.
Lovely, thank you. And people who follow me on Instagram already should be very familiar with Incredible, very trusted and long-serving partner. So thank you very much for joining me. I really appreciate it, and really excited to talk about money and mental well-being because it's such a big thing right now. And actually, when both Incredible and How I Fund This put out polls on our Instagram stories, we realized that a lot of our audiences, even though some of the followers are the same, but they're also very different, mental well-being and being in debt were such significant responses that we received from those polls, from anything from the mental load of having debt, or that fear that you would never be able to get out of debt, or if you did, then you would fall back into that trap quite quickly. And that's why I thought this would be a really good opportunity for us to talk about it. Maybe our own experience with it, any tips that we might have, or any trends that we may have noticed over the last year or so with the cost of living crisis, for example. But yeah, that's why we felt it was really important to talk about it. And yes, do you have any experiences with how your mental well-being has been affected by money?
Yeah, I think it very much echoes like what a lot of people have always felt, which is, it's all very overwhelming with all the different products that are constantly sold to us. The inner workings and mechanics of things make things difficult. And there have been times in my past, like I think the start of my financial life, so to speak, when I was, 18, 19, and how overwhelming it was getting my first credit card, realizing how costly that can be, the journey of like knowing when to switch or how long it may take to pay off. And, we're talking small balances here, which add up to a lot of money when you factor in like there are so many things at play, making it so much more expensive than it needs to be. And naturally, I think everyone's default with any big, large problem as the time poor, resource poor nation that we are, is just sort of put your head in the sand and just, things will just figure itself out. That's obviously the thing. You shouldn't do that. You should very much go and figure out what's going on. Like take stock of what's coming in, what's going out. I think that's the bare minimum of sort of spring cleaning you can do. Like, are you paying for things that you don't no longer need? Are you spending more money than actually you're earning? And in doing so, like your debt is compounding constantly. So there's it can seem like there's no end in sight. So I think step one is obviously like get a full view of everything going on. So like, here's all my income, here's everything I owe to people, here's roughly what my expenditure is. And whether you do this in a spreadsheet or a number of different apps that can help you with this stuff these days, like this first thing is just get something down, even if it's pen and paper. And it just has to be an approximate to start, and then you can start getting a lot more detailed. A bunch of users that we speak to have spreadsheets for this stuff and notes and put reminders in and use all the tools that they have at their disposal. But yeah, like going back to the main question, I think it's easy just to start ignoring stuff as soon as they get a bit difficult. And the other issue is like letting things be quite passive. So naturally, direct debits get set up when you take out a loan or a credit card, but that might not be set up in the most efficient way possible. And also, like if you have this, I think we all are guilty of having this experience of repaying for stuff in the same way we repay our bills, which is like, here's this payment that goes out, around the same time every month, and like everything is fine. But if you don't understand, again, like what the cost of it is, it just ends up stacking up against you, and it becomes a lot more difficult later than to figure out what's actually happening now. So again, find all everything you owe, and figure out how long it's going to actually take you to pay back. That's like at the bare minimum, most people should be able to do that, and go into your banking apps and to look at your statements and all sorts of stuff, which will tell you the information. And yeah, like I think as I've grown, I've been fortunate to be quite financially savvy. I've worked in financial technology for a while, so I've known to get a handle on this stuff relatively quickly. but I do remember a time where I wasn't as bothered as I am now, and it's very easy for things to just really go against you, cost you a lot of money and a lot of mental stress in the process. And for those, you know, that find it super overwhelming, there's a bunch of organizations out there. You know, speak to your friends. A lot more people speak about this now, especially like within our age, like within the millennial, society. Like everyone's pretty open. Yeah, the age bracket. Like everyone's pretty open about this stuff. Everyone, it's a classic. Like no one thinks anyone else has any sort of borrowing or any sort of debt, and everyone is saving and investing, and everyone's like, you know, a lot better off than they think they are. So yeah, just speak to your friends about it first, and your family or someone, and then like that should hopefully kickstart you into taking the necessary steps to get things back on track. What about yourself?
Yeah, for sure. Yes, actually, the reason why I started my whole personal finance journey is because I used to have such an anxious relationship with money. And it would really affect, I would do the burying my head in the sand situation, because it felt a lot easier than having to deal with it head on. And because I was so anxious about it, it would affect things like going to the bank to open a standard current account, for example. I wouldn't want to do that, and I didn't want anyone to see my bank statements, and I was worried that they would reject me for a current account, and it was very stressful actually. And I thought, well, actually, how can I get out of this, and how can I not feel this way? And for me, it was all about learning about money, and it's not something that my parents really taught me. They said, you know, save up for a rainy day, those kind of things, but they didn't sit down and give me the nuts and bolts of it, of how credit works or how debt works or anything like that. And obviously we don't get taught it in school, which is outrageous really, because it affects so much of what we do that it does need to be taught in school. That's a whole nother topic, but it really did affect me. And one of the ways that I got out of it was that financial knowledge. And actually, even to this day, I say to myself when I'm making a financial decision, yes, I will consider what's best financially with that knowledge that I have, but also a big part of it is what will help me sleep better at night. And that plays a huge part in it, because I had sleepless nights about money before, and I don't want to be in that situation again. And sometimes my decisions aren't necessarily the most financially savvy, but they do help me feel better, which is far more important to me than making sure that it's 100% the best financial decision. Like, it needs to feel right in myself as well.
Yeah, and there's a huge issue of, like, you know, we're inherently addicted to instant gratification, right? So something bought right now is a lot better than waiting for it. And, you know, life generally is really hard. So if any tiny moments of joy that we are supposedly meant to feel when we buy stuff just helps a little. So doing anything to combat that will obviously also go in everyone's favor.
Yeah, definitely. And I think you make such good points about how we are constantly sold to now. I mean, even just walking down the street, like, you've got a billboard about one thing, come to this cafe, do this, oh, there's a great new iPhone out, whatever it is. And you've only walked, I don't know, five minutes down the road, and there's so much. And that doesn't necessarily help things either, I think. And working in marketing, I see it a lot as well.
Yeah, like, consumerism is, you know, worse now than it probably ever has been before, because everything is in our face all the time, constantly. You know, with, like, it's been widely spoken of already, but social media doesn't make it any easier. And you have FOMO, then you have, like, you know, social pressure and all these things that are making us chase, whether it's a physical product or an experience or whatever it may be. Like, we're constantly needing more and more and more. And actually we don't. We need less, right? We need less things, and in doing so, we need to spend less money. and again, like going not just about going into like what is constantly sold to us, but look how easy it is to amass so much debt, right? Like you can go on any form of online checkout now, whether it's, you know, cinema tickets or your Deliveroo, you can basically borrow on for any and every purchase, and in doing that, encourages just like stacking all of these other products and eventually having to find money from one place to, you know, to pay something else. And like, you know, especially on the backdrop of a global pandemic, right, where revenge spending is like a really, really difficult to combat with, just because of how people generally feel, is really difficult. And I think us, you know, people like yourself and your account and all the education that you're spreading on taking back control, you know, fintechs like ours and a number of others in the space who are trying to, you know, give you that finance 101. You know, like that never existed when we were growing up. I don't think that still exists today in schools or any curriculum. Finance 101 should be like, personal finance 101 should be, you know, like a mandatory course that everyone takes before they turn 18, and even kids these days. And I think as an industry, like whether it's a company or a financial well-being coach or whoever it may be, I think it's our duty to like educate everyone that we can, so that when people are being constantly sold to, they understand the risks of what actually is happening here.
Yeah, sure. I think add on the fact that yes, we're constantly being sold to, yes, it's really easy for us to buy things as well. Add on the fact that we are generally trying to keep up with our friends, our peers, our colleagues. We see a colleague wearing a lovely new watch and we want that watch immediately, or whatever that example is. That then feeds into that cycle that can be quite difficult to break. And I think that's something that I've definitely faced in my past, of comparing myself to others and trying to keep up with my peers, but not necessarily spending the money that I wanted to spend money on. And it was just like, well, so-and-so is doing it, so it seems like I should be doing it as well. And that's another element of how it's very easy to get into debt, because you're always like trying to constantly keep up. And the watch is one example, but it could be a fancy new car or a new house. You know, it could be as big as that. It's not always those smaller purchases, which I'm really trying to educate people about, because I mean, I don't even talk to those people that I was trying to keep up with anymore. So why does it matter? Yeah, it doesn't.
It doesn't. It really doesn't. And you know, billions goes into making us feel this way. But I feel like we're on this sort of inflection point where things are starting to change now. People are becoming slightly more wiser. Digital tools are readily available to like help you understand what's actually happening. I'd like to think we're moving into a better place. I'd like to think people are generally wising up to understand how money works, and that's largely because of, you know, accounts like yours and personal finance apps that are making education like part of their customer journey. And you know, I think you can't just sort of start. You can't just assume that we're going to create this curriculum or these courses and everyone's going to learn. Like every company to some degree has a duty of care to their customers, and that duty of care should not just extend to the product that they're selling, but the implications of how they're purchasing that product. And the same goes for credit card companies. Like it's so easy to get a limit increase, right? When you take out a credit card on a 1 or 2K balance, you know, you use it reasonably sensibly for a number of years, and they'll increase your limit without you really knowing. Yeah, it's so easy for them to increase your limit, but it's not so easy for them to tell you or give you the information you need of like what this actually costs you, how long it's going to take you to pay, what does this mean in relation to your other finances, and stuff like that.
And actually, I've been receiving a lot of emails recently from certain banks telling me or asking me whether I want a loan with them. And I think I understand that they have a service, but at the same time, if you're not financially aware or you don't know what those implications are, like you've just mentioned, then saying that I could get a loan for £25,000 seems very inviting, especially during this time when the cost of everything is so high, wages are stagnant. It seems, oh, that's a lovely idea, and I can just get it with a few clicks on my phone. And I think there is more that they should be doing in terms of how they market those. And I do think banks are doing a lot in terms of gambling, for example. But I think they need to be really careful with how they do that, because I'm not interested, and I think it's because of what I do in terms of how I fund this. But I think it can be potentially very dangerous.
Yeah, for sure. I completely agree.
Have you got any tips then for anybody who is trying to maintain their peace of mind during their debt-free journey?
Yeah, I think, again, like going back to the very bare minimum is take stock of what's actually happening, knowing having the information at hand, and knowing what's going in, what's coming in, what's going out. That will always help you start your journey. That doesn't necessarily give you peace of mind, but at least it gives you the information at hand. The second thing is understanding like how you're spending. Make sure like when you're calculating what you need for your bills and your rent and whatever it may be, make sure you include your repayments in that amount. So know how much you need to have basically left over at the end of once all of your direct debits have come out to actually make those repayments. Because once you start missing those repayments and those start to add up, you start incurring late fees, and then again it's so easy to default to our this ability to just jump to putting our head in the sand. If you find if it's difficult, there's a number of organizations you can speak to, or you can even call your bank and just say, hey, I need some space. I think it's called breathing space, where they give you 3 months of they freeze your interest. You need to explain them a lot. You need to explain your situations to them. It's not like, I don't think everyone is eligible for it, but there are things at these large banks, at these lending companies, where if you do call them and tell them what's going on, or that you're afraid you may miss a payment, or you've had a sudden change in income, they will be able to help you. And leaving that last minute just makes things harder. And it's so easy to just want to hide away and not deal with it, but actually you're making things even worse. Just pick up the phone today, call them and say, hey, I have an issue with these things, or whatever it may be. And if you don't want to do that, you can speak to a debt organization like Step Change. They have a number of tools dependent on the type of issues that you're facing. And even if you're just feeling a bit anxious about it, you're actually fine and you're making your repayments, but you started borrowing or starting thinking about taking out a loan for a large purchase, before you take out that loan, make sure you have all of the information about what it actually means to take out a loan and pay it back, because you'd be surprised that most people don't. I was always surprised by all the surveys that we push out, and people tell us they don't know the interest rates at which they borrowed at, which is like the why things are so costly.
Yeah.
Again, it's easy to know, hey, 25 grand, yeah, great, I need that. Whereas, and you look at the small print and you see what it actually costs, it becomes easy to see why these loans are being shoved down our throats.
Yeah, sure. And actually, I think really good advice. What I would also say is when talking to these professionals, they've heard everything under the sun. You are not alone. And I think it's very easy to feel alone when you're on a debt journey or you've got debt, especially if you're not yet comfortable talking to friends and family about it. But these people are professionals, they've heard everything, they're not judgmental, and Step Change are fantastic. Had so many good reviews from people who follow me who talk about them, and they're really, really worthwhile. And definitely worth getting in touch with. But yeah, I think it's important to know that, as you've alluded to before, debt is more common than you think it is. So, don't feel as if you are the only one in that situation.
Yeah. Literally everyone has it.
Yeah,
everyone,
exactly. Just because they don't talk about it doesn't.
Yeah, exactly.
No, for sure. And also, I think I would say, yes, improve your financial knowledge and understand those components about debt. Because I think when you have more knowledge, you feel more empowered, but also you start to understand it more. Those things that you might be worrying about, you might not need to be worrying about, or you might use that knowledge to create a plan, for example, of what to do next. And you don't have to know that full plan from A to B, from start to finish, whatever it is, but just your next step. And your next step could be researching debt management plans, for example. It doesn't need to be a big step. It can just be something that you feel is quite small, but actually makes a big difference.
Yeah.
I think it's really important.
Yeah, for sure. And then going back to my point of like taking stock of everything, you know, I think it was Peter Drucker who said, you can't manage what you don't measure. And if you're not checking like how much interest you're incurring every day or every month even, how do you know when you need to go and look for a better product, or how do you know you need to go and call the bank to say, hey, like something's wrong here? And one of my other favorite things that I've seen, especially since starting this company, is like the debt-free community on Instagram. Like everyone's documenting their journey, and you can see this gradual progression, and you know, you've almost got an army of people all cheering you on, and they're all cheering each other on. And I think that's part of a really, like, you know, it makes it a bit more human, right? Like everyone's got a similar goal here. Everyone wants some form of financial freedom. Everyone wants to own a home. Everyone wants to have maximum savings and be investing. And it takes everyone it takes a different time for everyone to get there. So, you know, don't do it alone. Like, either if you don't want to make your own account, make a fake account or under an alias or whatever. And there's so many accounts already doing it, and it's amazing to see. I think a year ago when we started being active on Instagram, we've seen people gone from like, you know, 10 grand, now they've got a few £100s left. And that, you know, that sense of accountability by sharing it constantly may help you take further action than you otherwise wouldn't have if you were just like not dealing with any of it.
Yeah, for sure. And also getting tips from them as well in terms of, I don't know, whether they found a particular like charity very useful or whatever it is to try and help you. I think, yeah, do that collective work and have that accountability within that as well. So yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah.
How do you think that Incredible can help in terms of helping people with this problem?
So, a number of ways. For us, our focus is helping people save money on interest. So we want to reduce the cost in which, the cost incurred by paying off your credit cards, your loans, your car finance, whatever it may be. And that starts with not just making those payments for you or finding you a better loan. It starts with giving you the information. So, you know, go and try and calculate what your credit card balance is and how much it's going to cost you is quite difficult when you're looking at, you know, you're scanning through a PDF or whatever it may be. So we focus of like, you know, step one is once you've added all your cards, we'll tell you like what you've borrowed, which you should know because it's on the balances. We'll tell you how much we think it's going to cost you to pay back based on your behavior. So we look at your financial behavior, we look at your repayment history, we look at a number of different, you know, things to infer like what we think like your sort of forecast might be. And your forecast might be like, we think it's going to take you 10 years to pay this balance of £3,000 off. And this is how much it's going to cost you in that time. So we give you that view immediately as soon as you connect your cards, and we encourage you to add more and more cards. Eventually you'll be able to add other products. And once we've done that, you know, we move to the next step, which is, okay, well, here's like, we've given you the information. Now we want to help you actually start taking the steps to manage this. So we give you a number of different payment options. So whether you want to make this single payment every month that clears everything, or you want to do extra roundups so you can like overpay, you know, overpaying £5 can save you thousands of pounds in interest, which I always find quite, you know, small changes, big impact is always quite interesting. And then there's going to be a number of other features that we're going to be rolling out, and, you know, being part of our community, we get to share that very early with people, looking at other ways you can save on that on those interest fees. So, you know, again, looking at your financial behavior elsewhere to see like what are some things that we could change, and to expedite that time it takes to clear all of this balance off, because you might be, I don't know, putting your subscriptions on your credit card for whatever reason, or you might be overpaying the wrong card. You know, if you have an excess balance at the end of the month, and you're saving money, you're probably losing money if you're paying a higher interest debt. So all these like small actions that it's easy to automate once we have your information is some of the ways in which we can help people. And we're all ears of what other features people would find helpful. One thing we've found a lot is a lot of people write their payment dates in their notes and calendar and expect to be reminded. So like payment reminders is something we'll be rolling out. And then eventually we'll work with other like players in the space to just give you better products, whether it's a better interest rate card or loan or whatever it may be. We fundamentally exist to just like save people money on their interest fees.
Amazing. And I love that you were so responsive in terms of the features that people are wanting or needing. So that's great. And I've written a lovely long post about Incredible, so I'll make sure that is linked as well. But where can people find you if they want to find out more about Incredible?
So we're very active on Instagram, so I'd recommend you follow us on there at IncredibleHQ. We're on TikTok as well, trying to both educate and entertain people. You can find us on LinkedIn for some more serious content, or check out our blog. We write a lot about the general financial well-being space and how money works. So sign up to our newsletter, and download our app or message me if you have any specific questions.
Lovely. Thank you so much for your time, Yas. You've been amazing, very helpful, and I know people will find lots of value from this. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.